Welcome, everyone. I see that some of you have already got the chat started. And welcome to this little surprise, O'Neill. Yeah, we're on YouTube today. And why would I say that if you would think otherwise, other than often we meet for these new moon Nova Nidras in the Nova Nidra community, which is this beautiful community of individuals that really connect with deep rest, that connect with the practice of Yoga Nidra. And I hope that if you are hearing this now, that you can consider joining us there, where we have really lovely conversations and community space. I want to first acknowledge some of you that are here. So welcome, Jeff. Oyara, I don't know if I'm saying your name right. Nadij, O'Neill, Mark, welcome. Luisa, so lovely to have you here as well. And Liv, so nice to see you. Grateful to hear that you're meditating. And we've got Erna here from Australia, Peter here from Minneapolis, welcome. I'm thankful to have you all here as well. I often feel like I come into these sessions feeling like I'm prepared. I have kind of an order to how things are going to unfold. And as I came out of my Yoga Nidra practice today, before coming on with all of you, I had to check in with myself, check in with my energy, call my emotional support cat, who will be here joining with us very soon. And my emotional support cat is Kat Jones. She's the community liaison, helping and supporting people as they join in. Welcome, Carrie from Norway. Yeah, as you join in, just maybe mention where you are tuning in from. And let's take a second before we get into things and orient ourselves into the space that we're in. And for those of you that are already in the Peace and Rest program, you're going to be familiar with this exercise. And I'll give a little bit of history behind it because I feel like it's helpful for us to understand more deeply when there's a little bit of a history behind things. In the beginning of time, of us being here on this planet and understanding survival, we would put ourselves at a vantage point where we could see the horizon. And today I'm showing up with you in this little this little rectangle. And this is the horizon that we're often looking at now, our devices and on the computer. And so we're taking ourselves out of this natural, instinctual state of seeing what is around us, looking down at our phone. And this is where all of the information is coming from. All of this information is coming up from these devices. And although there's so much beauty to it, this is why we can connect today, right? There's so many beautiful things to this. But the other aspect of it is that we're given so much information that it can be challenging to discern, what is true and what is just a story. And we get so wrapped up in these little stories that's then becoming a part of our perception. And it is incredibly rewarding. It's incredibly intentional work to recognize what is us and what is not. And so when we would first put ourselves into these vantage points, in these primitive, the primal time of humankind, we would get to a vantage point and we would look to see where we could find resources and where we could avoid danger. And the practice of Yoga Nidra is a practice of rest, of restoration, of allowing ourselves to surrender. And I dive into this in the Peace and Rest program, that it's important first to create a space that feels safe to surrender into. And so we're going to take a moment wherever you're at. If you're seated, I'm not sure if some of you are out and about while you're listening to this, but if it is safe to do so, find yourself a seated position and just make yourself a little bit comfortable, maybe a lot comfortable. And you're going to take your awareness from one end of the room and slowly move that awareness across to the other. And so as some of you still tuning in, maybe mentioning where you are, you're welcome now to take a moment to just notice your environment. If you're in your bedroom, and if you're in your office or your living room, wherever that is, I invite you to step into the beginner's mind, Maybe this place, even though it might be familiar, and for some of you, maybe not, how can you just take a moment to see it through the eyes of a child, Maybe noticing the colors, noticing the shapes. And as you familiarize yourself with this space, maybe instead of first focusing on the pleasant things, maybe just notice what would make you more comfortable. What would make you feel more at home in your body? And that might be just closing a door or putting the blinds down. And as I'm sharing this with you, I'm going to go close the door because I'm going to feel better if I do that. And take as much time as you need to make that space for yourself feel nice and comfortable. And then come back to scanning your peripheries. And as you notice the colors and the shapes, maybe the faces and the pictures on the wall, see if there's something within this room, within these walls, or in nature if you're there, that feels pleasant. So now that you've scanned your resources to see what can make you feel more safe, now open yourself up to what feels pleasant. And I invite you to take a moment with whatever that might be, whether it's a an old picture or a scene out the window. And enjoy this exchange of what it is you visually see. And breathe into how it makes you feel. How does that make you feel to notice that within the space? Maybe you notice your shoulders begin to settle a bit more. Perhaps you are aware of a lightness that it brings. Or maybe nothing is really coming up at all, and that's okay too. And then when you're ready, come back to center, meaning your spine is in alignment and you feel as though you're facing one direction. And close the eyes if you feel comfortable doing so, and that might not feel comfortable. So even just allowing the gaze to drop down and seeing if you can connect now with other senses, the sounds within the room, maybe even the sound of your breath. And since we're moving into the season of Leo, checking in also with your heart. The heart is a very powerful energy center. It doesn't really need too much explanation. You know, we all feel this awareness of our heart and the symbolism that is held there. There's something super meaningful about our awareness landing onto the space of the heart. And give yourself permission to breathe into that space. And when we shut down the eyes in whatever capacity we feel comfortable shutting them down, naturally the awareness starts to move into more of an intuitive space. Now that you've scanned your environment and recognized how to really plant yourself into the space, even with your eyes closed, there's almost this knowing of what is spatially around you. And so consider in this moment, what is around your heart? What is near to your heart? Perhaps you're considering a loved one. Perhaps you're considering something in your world that might be unfolding or imploding or expanding. All of us that are joining here today are maybe experiencing battles that no one could possibly know. And perhaps some of us here are in celebration of something that we really want to shine light on and give reverence to. And the beautiful thing about being in union, in community, is that we can amplify the sense of togetherness, the sense of oneness by practicing on this global scale. It's so beautiful to see you all connecting from around the world. And so take a moment to just kind of sit into that, knowing that whatever it is that you're carrying, whatever it is that you're holding within that space, can support someone maybe on some other corner of the globe without any effort. So as you acknowledge what is on your heart, for those of you that are sensing the lightness, I encourage you to expand that lightness to someone that is here with us or perhaps not. And for those of you that might be feeling into a bit more of heaviness, see if you can allow the shoulders just to rock back a little bit. Open up the heart, whether you visualize it or just sense a softening of maybe 1% or 10%, so that you can receive also some of that lightness from your neighbor. And what can happen here is we might sense as we open the heart or extend our heart to another, or receive our heart, receive love, receive lightness, that maybe we enter into a space of neutrality, a space of equanimity, knowing that we don't have to walk it alone, hold it alone, and that it can be for all of us to share in a beautiful and supportive way. And I'll tell you guys, my heart is open. I'm here to receive. Send your friend Ayla here a little LOVE. Thank you. And I send some to you. Thank you. Now we'll take 3 deep breaths. So inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. And exhale through the mouth. Make this one a good one, everyone. Deep inhale. And when you exhale, just sigh it out. And now together, let's trust a little bit more into the moment. Slowly begin to open the eyes. Open the eyes. And there you are again, in that same space you started. And what are you noticing? Is it looking a little brighter? What is it within that room now as you scan from one end to the other? And see if maybe your awareness lands on something different, maybe the same, but notice what, again, feels pleasant. What feels pleasant? And then perhaps you notice the corners of your lips begin to rise up. Maybe the little chiclets start showing. That's teeth. And check in. How are you feeling? How's everyone feeling? Welcome, Sherry. Welcome, A. And John, welcome from England. Yeah. Thank you, Eleanor. So maybe share with us what you are noticing. Share in the chat there, or leave a comment about, if you could put it into one word, what are you noticing? Or maybe one word can't even express it. Maybe there's more to it than that. But just maybe mention that in the chat, and we can all share with each other what's coming up for us. Ahara's noticing peace. Thank you for the love, everyone. A dancer from Buenos Aires. Yeah, stillness, peace, comfortable, safe. Beautiful, Barbara. Stillness, yeah, quietude. Might have put too many T's in that one, but beautiful, loved. I know I feel lighter. And, there's these pressures we sometimes put on ourselves. I mean, I know I do. Showing up a particular way, of having to have things figured out maybe, or maybe being frustrated why you don't, or having a perpetual pattern that keeps on showing up and you're like, why am I here again? What is this supposed to be teaching me? And so I was feeling some heaviness before getting on with all of you today. And the energy of the Leo is this archetypal sign that's about authenticity. And Kat shared in the newsletter today about a roar. And I was thinking, I don't know if I can roar today. I don't know if I can bring out that level of energy that I usually do. And so grounding ourselves together and as community, it's in the most beautiful way infectious, in the most beautiful way, because just having you all here and having you show up, you're not showing up for me, you're showing up for yourself. And you're all doing this to honor deep rest. A cowardly lion, yeah, not all of us roar. And I thought, oh man, I might have to cancel today. I don't feel like I'm fully centered in myself to share a yoga nidra. And I didn't coward. I'm here. Because I realized what was coming up was this inner child, and that also is some of the energy of Leo. It's like, look at this, watch me roar, see what I'm capable of. and that's a beautiful thing too, right? So sometimes, and I shared this in the Nova Nidra community, that sometimes you just have to show up scared. Oh wait, that was in the Peace and Rest program. Sometimes you just have to show up anyways, not because it's going to deplete you, and not out of stepping out of your own personal boundaries, but sometimes the cause is so much greater than the present moment feeling. And the truth is that when you get into these moments where you're feeling like you're hanging on to something heavy, and this is what is suffering. Suffering is when we feel and we believe that something is permanent. We think that the idea of impermanence is scary. The fact that one day we will lay our head to rest and it may be our last. And I say that with so much love because that is reality. And for myself, I speak to this in such a deep truth, a deep lived experience, that the awareness of knowing impermanence is actually liberating, right? So I share this passage with you from, it's Your True Home, Thich Nhat Hanh. And I open up the page as I do when I feel a little lost. And this book always brings me back. And, the theme of impermanence has been coming up a lot recently. And it says, live long impermanence. If you suffer, it's not because things are impermanent. It's because you believe things are permanent. When a flower dies, you don't suffer much because you understand flowers are impermanent. But you cannot accept the impermanence of a beloved one, and you suffer deeply when she passes away. If you look deeply into impermanence, you will do your best to make her happy right now. Aware of impermanence, you become positive, loving, and wise. Impermanence is good news. Without impermanence, nothing would be possible. With impermanence, every door is open for change. Instead of complaining, we should say, live long impermanence. Impermanence is the instrument of our liberation. I wonder if some of that landed with any of you. It's like living with the fear that something is always going to stay there, that something's always going to feel a particular way. I can relate. The drop into, a more of a depressive state, kind of ruminating in the past, kind of playing scenarios over and over again in your head, how they should have been, how they could have been. And then the idea of the future with that level of awareness of the past, thinking that, oh, well, I know that this happened in the past, so it's going to happen again in the future. And it creates this cycle, right? It's this endless cycle of stress and anxiety. And for those of you that have been through the Peace and Rest program, you know that when we use this practice of Yoga Nidra at its fullest potential, we start to realize that there's something beyond that story. There's something beyond the horizon of technology. There's something deeper through connection of being with one another that reminds us, yeah, actually, this permanent feeling, this permanent stress or anxiety that we're carrying isn't actually permanent. It's our belief that it will remain. And the idea when I came on here today, how am I going to show up? How can I show up when I don't know what I'm going to say? How am I going to show up when I don't feel like my bright, vibrant self that everybody knows me to be? And then I trust my tools, Yeah. Is that you, Matthew? Did I just say that to you the other day? It's not always about the finish line, that I should have learned to enjoy the journey. Yeah. That's the thing, is life is happening right now. And, to be fully transparent with all of you, I think it's best that I just share from my heart with you today. And what I'm going to do to make up for not sharing a yoga nidra with you today is that for those of you that join on to the Nova Nidra community and are already in there, I'm going to set a day aside to offer to you a Leo Nova Nidra session that we can all join together on, because energetically, I just want to be present with all of you and share some of what is coming through and what is on my heart, what is around my heart, what I'm holding here for all of you. And so when I pulled out this book that's kind of a nice return to home, it literally is your true home. Pulling out impermanence actually sparked a memory for me about something that I wrote a long time ago. And it was actually during the time of the pandemic, The thing that had happened was, many of you are familiar, and for those of you that are just joining on, I came to a complete halt, a complete stop. I tried to avoid everything for a very long time in life. I'd even go as far to say that I bypassed a lot of what I was learning because of the fact I believed, okay, I'll be lovable when? I'll be lovable over there. I'll be lovable once I get this done. That was kind of the belief system that I had built on myself, because productivity equaled acceptance, equaled a gold star, equaled good job, girl. And when things got challenging, I couldn't face it because that would pull me away from that idea, right? So I eventually got ill. And there's a number of theories I could have around why that happened, but ultimately, there was nowhere left to run. There was nowhere left to hide. There was nowhere that I personally could go. And maybe you guys have felt this too. I know some of you that tune in have experienced long COVID, have your own cancer journeys, or have experienced burnout, or have been in a fog of confusion about what steps to take moving forward, whether that might be a huge life transition, maybe going through a divorce, or maybe you're going into retirement, or perhaps you're just realizing your body isn't capable of doing what it once was able to do. So I know that I'm not alone in that feeling, in that experience, even though in that moment it felt quite isolating. And so, being that I used to be a flight attendant, when things got hard, I would run away from the scene. I'd just hop on a plane and go to a different country and be a tourist. And that was my way of coping. But when I got into that position where there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, I had to sit with it all. And that became the greatest teacher. And all of us are doing that when we return to our mat. We're coming home. Home is not when you get the job. Home is not when you get the perfect relationship. Home is when you can be with yourself. And that aloneness that you sense is actually not as lonely as you might believe. That this becomes the safe haven. This becomes the safe spot to be. But that's hard at first, because then that means we have to feel things. Oh man, and I don't want any of you to have to go through what I went through to feel it, but some of you have been through that journey already. And so this is why I've spent the last year in hibernation. This is why you're not getting as many yoga nidras from me, is because this realization of the experience that I had, that I know you can relate to in some aspect. of just being like, okay, what now? This to me was a time in my life where I got existential crisis, What do I believe in? Who am I without the labels? Who am I without the masks? All of those different things, right? Like, who are you without what you got in the driveway? Like, who are you without, the label of mother, father, brother, sister, And that's a bit scary sometimes if you've never given yourself the opportunity to contemplate that. And I realized that, I had to go through a pretty intense boot camp to realize that aspect of myself. But if it wasn't for the teachings, the ancient teachings that come alongside this practice of Yoga Nidra, that I would have been very, very lost. Yeah. And so I spent the last year working with some of you that are here, developing a step-by-step process of how we can meet ourselves. Because we don't need to wait until that moment where it all comes crashing down, or we have that experience where we don't have a choice anymore. Like, we have to do the work. But some of us are already there. And that's why the Peace and Rest program is here. And if you want to maybe just kind of dip your toes in feeling what it's like to be in the community, in the space, then I encourage you to join the Nova Nidra community and just kind of get to know the energy that's there. But through this process of going step by step, you think, how am I going to have the time, Ayla? My life's already busy. I've got all these things on the go. How am I supposed to, show up for myself when I'm already overwhelmed and I have all these things going on? But it's these beautiful teachings that accompany your practice and help you to see the deeper veils, the deeper layers of yourself. And guess what the homework is? Resting. It's not filling out, like getting something tested or marked. It's actually just showing up for yourself. And for some of us, we call that discipline. And some of us, we call that devotion. But it doesn't matter what you call it. You have to become it. And the only way to become something that you aren't already is to believe it, and to believe that every single day. I am. I am. So through this process, this step-by-step process, you learn how to meet yourself, how to create space for yourself in Yoga Nidra. And then you also learn how to use and work with a Sankalpa that's going to support you along that journey. And then we learn what's beyond the practice. And I share this with you because, before I hopped on this call, I just had his name pop up in my head, Martin Luther King, and Martin Luther King Jr. And it was, I have a dream. And you want to know what my dream is? My dream is that you don't have to go to the darkest corner of your life to shine the brightest light, that you don't have to go through that crash course that I did. And even if you are there, know that these teachings are what supported and held space to transcend that. Because, you can only go through life so long being that soldier, getting into the trenches and then dealing with the muck and then getting back up again, going back into the trenches, getting back up again, until eventually it's no longer resilience, it's burnout. It's adrenal fatigue. It's dis-ease in the body. And I don't say this as a threat. I mean, this is a true lived experience. that eventually I had to get out of the trenches and stop going, I can do the hard thing, and actually look, what is doing the hard thing? What is hard? But it doesn't have to be hard, you know? It's hard because you've avoided it. It's hard because I avoided it. And so my dream is to see that you can discover peace in yourself, that you don't need to make the environment around you all the time have to dictate whether or not this is okay. Because this is okay, but it's this that gets in the way. And we can think and we know, I know what to do. I know how to solve this problem. I know how to get out of this loop. But yet we continue to see ourselves falling into it, right? So just know that I'm here to support you through this program. And Kat is here as well. Kat is a huge part of this. And also all of the members of the Peace and Rest program that are already in that space, they've already gone in there. And we're no longer going into the trenches, you know, meeting the moment, discovering peace at will. Because that is my dream, for you to discover peace in this world. Because guess what? When this internal world starts to become more peaceful, when you are no longer at war internally, then everything around you starts to become more peaceful. You start creating boundaries around those people that are intrusively, that have had the ability to get in there. You create boundaries for that. Because you've been practicing surrender, you can start opening up lines of communication that are receptive, because guess what? You're receptive. You've been allowing. And you can begin to accept where you're at without the story. And maybe the story is there, but it no longer has power. And that is what we call liberation. When we are not constantly in that wheel. So I share that with you from my heart. And I feel like I've been hopping on so many calls with people asking about the Peace and Rest program. Like, what is this? What are we doing here? And I'm grateful to share that with you, but I want you to know that we have a website for you to look over all of the details. And when you book on to chat with me, you'll also get a video to dive into it more so you can get more details on it. And I really would love to be intentional about our time together, so that you all know this is the intention. I want for you to discover peace, but more than anything, I want for you to want that. Because that's what's going to make the shift. You wanting that. Now, that's the dream. I just have one last thing to say on the war bit, because when we're at war with ourselves, when we're experiencing all of that, and we can feel it, and it's everywhere we're looking, it's so hard, it's so disheartening, right? But it's because that's what we're gravitating towards, that's what we're pulling our energy towards, you know? And what we resist will persist. So if we aren't ready to meet it, we're going to keep on meeting it. Guess what? If you're not ready to meet it, you will keep on meeting it. But if you're ready to discover peace, guess what's going to start attracting you? Peace, baby. Peace. So if you are feeling called to learn more about this, just literally write peace in the comments, write peace in the chat, and well, maybe the chat, put it in the comment below so that I can send you details to this so that we can talk about it and learn more about it with you, okay? Thank you, Jeff. So I've never actually shared this, and I feel kind of vulnerable sharing this publicly because in my head, again, right, my Virgo brain is going, oh, it has to be perfect, and I want to make a music video out of it, and all of these different things. But in the name of Leo, I'm going to share from my heart this poem that I wrote, and I've shared it with those of you in the Peace and Rest program, and I'm just going to get out of my own way and share it with you. So coming back to where I started, when I told you about sitting in my apartment during COVID, and, I'd gotten through the cancer journey, and finally they say, Ayla, you can take your mask off. You can breathe the air again. You don't have to protect yourself from everyone. The irony of going into a global experience like that, where we all had to put masks on, literally hide ourselves. I went from finally being able to feel safe in the world to the world being like, nope, not yet. We ain't ready for you, girl. We got to go through this really intense thing collectively now. So you have to be really careful what you wish for, because I thought to myself, I hope that everyone gets a chance to experience the gifts of being grounded without having to go through the experience that I did. And then on a global scale, everyone went through that, but not everybody got that same support, that same teaching, because this lineage was here for us, right? So I want that for you. I want for you to learn all of the deep teachings of Yoga Nidra. And also, guess what? You have deep teachings within you too. And as you rest with them, they will unlock and life will start presenting some really beautiful miracles for you. I have some testimonies from some of you that are in the group here, and soon I'll be sharing them so that you can get some insight to what other people are experiencing within the Peace and Rest program, not just me. It's a method, it's proven. All right, my friends. So I'm sitting in my apartment and sitting with the fact that I've had to come back to square one again, putting the mask on, hiding out from the world. And I wrote this poem called Patiently. So I'll share it with you now. Impermanence always has me torn. That fine line between don't wait and take your time. I was looking up at the sky when a suit running down the concrete knocked an old woman's shoulder. Her bag fell to the street. He yelled, "Don't you see? I have somewhere to be." The famous words that fray the existence of harmony. And yet we always want to get there. The furthest place from nowhere. But what happens when you do? Do you forget the in-between? The parts of life happening behind the scenes? Spending all that time admiring their grass, forgetting to water your own? Why don't you stop and smell the proverbial rose? Take a second to see where your truth grows. Quit trying to taste the wine before the grapes, being shattered before the earthquakes, feeling the scar before the burn. Don't you see? I have somewhere to be. Between the rise and the fall, between the rise and the fall, between the run and the crawl, between the sun and the moon. Life is not over there, in a few weeks, around the corner, or coming by soon. It's in those moments you can't keep. Whether you feel strong or weak, it's in the shadows of the dark. It's in the flicker before the spark. It's in the test before the mark. Don't you see? I have somewhere to be. She looked to me and said, somewhere to be is patiently waiting for you to see. It's right here. Impermanence. Don't wait and take your time. So I hope that you don't wait to discover peace in yourself, but that you take your time in resting, in allowing your nervous system to regulate so that you can pull yourself out of the survival mode that is the mechanism that keeps us going but also holds us back. So yeah, I'm here. And I won't be forever. Hey. So if you feel called to join the Peace and Rest program, this wasn't my plan. I wasn't going to talk about this all the time, but it's what's on my heart, and it's where I'm putting all of my energy. And I just really hope that you're ready to put that energy into yourself as well. So if after this you feel called to join in, the Peace and Rest is waiting for you before we rest in peace. Thank you for being here. Love to all of you. And it's just such an incredible journey to be here alive. I went to the doctor. I'm cancer-free still. And yeah, shall we live another day? All right. Peace out, everyone. Rest well, be well. Namaskar.